Welcome to Mind and Your Business with me, Monie Wilder, the podcast I wish I would have had when I started my career. As a mom and top producing real estate agent with close to 1,000 homes sold in under 8 years, I'll be diving into the mindset and strategies of how to create your business so that it authentically complements your life. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so do you want to know what this podcast is about?
Yes, I do.
All right. So this podcast is actually about having people like you, Russell Shaw, on it.
There are no other people like me.
There are no other people like you.
That's really the problem with the show. If you based it on that premise, it would have a really short run.
We're going to have a single episode and then we're going to wrap it up. That's it. This is the series premiere and finale, all in one. So this show is for realtors primarily to listen to be mentored by people like you.
Okay. Then I'll fit right in.
You'll fit right in. And it's called Mind and Your Business.
My what?
Mind and Your Business.
Mind
and Your Business. You can look here.
Oh, Mind and Your Business.
Yeah.
Like mind your business, but you've made a play on words. Okay, now I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what it's about. And you are the second guest to be on here, but you're already my favorite guest.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm not just saying that.
No. Well, here's the thing. This will fit right in with what I do. And the reason it will is I believe mindset is far more important than everything else combined.
Right.
Period. Like nothing compares to how you look at it. And it's very common for people to have their ideas of what they think should be true or how they should feel influenced heavily by other people.
Right.
And the real estate business is mostly a business based on failure. Like most agents are failures. And when I say failure, I think the number was like within 2 years, most of the agents are gone. They come in and they're gone. And if you said, is this because they're stupid? No, actually, some of them I've seen come through had very high IQs. But you have to have the correct viewpoint to succeed. And would people go to work like most of the real estate instructors, let's say pre-licensing? Hi. I hope I can remember some of what I just said. It was brilliant.
No, you're just talking about a lot of people that come in. They're not stupid. They have high IQ.
Yeah. Mindset is the key to succeeding. It's also the key to failing. Like people who fail are always going to blame the market. They're going to say, this is what was happening, and that's why I failed. And the reason they failed is because of how they reacted to what was happening in the market. Based, like people go, well, you couldn't succeed with high interest rates. So I would presume then everyone with low interest rates would be fabulously successful.
Right.
So it's just stupid. It's not true. They have false ideas. And it's not hard to find agreement from fellow agents on how rough it is. Well, if you decide something's really rough, you're also sort of deciding you can't quite do it.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. And I think that one of the most important things about having you here today is that I
brought my own coffee.
Well, it's a tight budget around here, so appreciate you guys helping out with that. One of the most important things about having you today is that you have done so much mentoring of hundreds. I mean,
actually thousands,
probably really, thousands
truly.
of agents throughout your career. So first, let's go back. One, people need to know who you are because this podcast, I'm not sure if you are aware, but it's going to be on the internet, and the internet is something that, yeah, I know.
Oh, so for those of you who aren't here in Phoenix, I hope you like it in the stupid city you're in. Go ahead, Monie.
Okay, thank you for that. That's a way to really draw people in.
Well, I think it makes it, Scott, they go, why is he calling where I live stupid? It's just a joke, really. But I mean it.
Okay.
People say, why do I live in Phoenix? And I said, well, it's easy. This is where my house is, where my home is. Where I would feel, if I was in Des Moines, you go, I don't know where to go. I guess I'd go to a hotel. New York City, same deal. Here I have a house.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is making sense so far.
There you go.
So you are one of the most successful real estate business owners on the planet.
Well, I have been. This last year wasn't good, but overall, yes.
Yeah, ever. And you are mentoring thousands of agents along your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is like, who mentored you? Who helped you like get started? How did you get into this? Like, how did you know about mindset? Like, what's the origin story of the Russell Shaw?
Okay. Well, I'd say a couple of things. One, my first 12 years was a struggle. I was living from deal to deal, doing between, I'd say, 17 and 23 deals a year, which was considered successful at the time. But when you look at what the prices were then,
right,
and you figured, I don't know, like say a 3% commission, that's not exactly living high on the hog.
Yeah.
And I was constantly frustrated and hated it. I just didn't know what to do, but I knew that there were some people that were, in fact, very successful. And I've been a Scientologist before I got into real estate. I've been in real estate for 45 years. I've actually been a Scientologist for over 50 years. And I thought just the things I knew from Scientology alone would help me. And they did help me in a lot of different ways, significantly, but it didn't propel me instantly to success. And so what I knew is that what I was doing wasn't cutting it. That's what I knew. I wasn't quite certain of what I needed to learn, but it was quite obvious to me that what I already knew was insufficient. And so I set out to figure out what equals success in real estate. This was, I don't want to call it a scientific study. It wasn't like I went to some university or something to work it out. But I noticed that most all of the successful agents had a listing-based business, period. Whether they worked buyers or not, but they didn't specialize in buyers. Agents that specialized in buyers tended to be what I'm going to call a Pop-Tart. They were literally at the mercy of random phone calls. So to learn to list was the key to success as far as I was concerned. And what I knew is that there was something magical about people who knew how to list houses. And I didn't know what that was. I mean, real seriously, I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know how to price homes. I couldn't figure out, this nonsense. If you looked at what gets taught, it's so idiotic, it's almost beyond belief. I finally figured out that all of the pre-licensing instructors were, without exception, failed agents.
Right.
So everything they're teaching is packaged with a viewpoint of failure. I'm not saying they're malicious.
No.
But they're taking what their version of reality is and passing it along.
Sure.
And even when they're saying stuff like you need to be a lister, they have no idea what that means. When I finally figured out that being a lister, you could use the same business cards and your license with the state was the same, but I finally figured out that that's where the similarity ended. To be a successful buyer agent, you had to have a key, a lockbox key, access to the MLS, not smell bad, and have a car. And be sort of likable. Oddly, the high likability was a real big factor. And that was the end of the list. Like you say, did you have to be competent? Nope. Did you have to know prices? Nope. You didn't have to know much of anything but be likable and have those things. A lister, I was startled to find out, some of them seemed like flaming assholes on the surface. And I thought, how in the world is this person who isn't particularly likable. I'm not saying they couldn't be likable, but I'd find successful listers who were making a lot of money, and I thought they weren't real high on the likability scale. And that was fascinating to me. So as I looked deeper into that, I realized there's something they know. And what that something was, they had personal certainty on how to price a house. And to the point, but here's what's interesting on that second part on price a house. All of the gibberish that's taught about price per square foot, as though this is the way to price a house. If that were true, really, Zillow would be correct all of the time.
Right.
They have smart people. They're actually idiot people, the whole company, but and I mean that literally. Everything they spew out is based on gibberish. There's nothing particularly that all the books they've ever written, as I go, this was sent, like some economist, PhD wrote it, and I'm going, I can't believe you're that stupid. I really mean that. There's nothing they ever say that I go, I'm so glad I got their insight.
Anyways,
be like RIS Media.
Thanks to our sponsor, Zillow. We appreciate your support of my podcast.
No, here's the thing. Price per square foot. And like I remember when Rich Barton shut down Zillow buying houses, and the prices they were paying were insanely high.
Right.
And he goes, and he literally made this statement. He's not a stupid person. He's actually a highly educated person and very wealthy. And he's smart in the ways where he built that company, and he's a billionaire. But I look and go, he actually was sort of upset that he couldn't get an algorithm that could correctly price a house within 1 or 2%. And frankly, the algorithm they have now is correct within 20%, high or low. And they call that correct.
Yeah.
So you go, it's not price per square foot. It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. Is that a factor? So people who use the terms price per square foot, I discovered, that know what they're talking about, build houses. Like contractors know what that means. Mm-hmm. Developers know what it means. But they're talking strictly price per square foot on construction costs. Right. And they do know what they're doing. Yeah. All of them that stay in business. If you went to Lennar or Horton, they know what that means. And they also know what it means, what they pay for land and the infrastructure in a subdivision. But they're not stupid. They're actually smart. And anyway, so I realized that I had to find out and discover, how do you actually price a house? Because just simply getting listings after I decided I'm not going to work with buyers anymore, I stopped my ads. I didn't have some alternative plan. My first 12 years, I just had this, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do for a living, but it can't be this crap. It's not, it just can't be. I'm going to be doing something fabulous. Now, if you'd asked me, well, what is that something fabulous? I don't know. I took up stand-up comedy and got some gigs and liked it. At the same time, I thought, I don't want to live out of a suitcase. And back then, I thought the last thing I want to do is play some crap hole where I have to breathe in smoke after I quit smoking. And I thought, I don't want to live out of a suitcase. So I thought, that's not what I want to do. But I knew I wanted to do something that mattered to me. And it was sort of odd how it worked out. I was mostly broke all the time. I mean, literally all the time I was broke and living from deal to deal. And I decided I have to stop doing this. I need money, and I want to stop worrying about money. So my money goal became to have enough money to never have to worry about money again. And I achieved that probably about 20 years ago, where I don't care I either want it or I don't want it, but I'm not making a money decision. But what I learned on how to price houses, and it's an interesting thing, because every successful agent knows how to price houses. All of them. Here's what's interesting. If you ask any one of them except me, I'm serious, how do you price a home? Can you show me? Their answer is invariably, it's just this knack I have.
Yeah.
It's this special thing I know. Well, they are correct. They know it. But what I finally spotted, based on my knowledge from Scientology, is they didn't know what they knew. They didn't know how they had arrived at the conclusion. But it wasn't that they didn't know it. They couldn't explain it.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's exactly how I feel.
You could go look at a house worth $2 million or $200,000, and you could figure out wouldn't take you long. This one's worth about 200, and this one's worth about 2 million. So there's something you clearly know with certainty. But if I said to you, here's this agent who's brand new, could you show her how you arrive at this? And you can't do that. No. But you're not alone. So what I did, I went to Mr. Hubbard's study technology was sitting right there in front of me the whole time. And if not for that, I'd have never stumbled into this. Because I can teach somebody how to price houses successfully in a few hours. Literally. It's that simple. And I looked at what Mr. Hubbard said on evaluating any datum. Didn't matter what it was. You're trying to figure something out. You'd find a datum of comparable or comparable magnitude to check it with.
Okay.
So if I said to you, how tall is someone? You could go, well, let's see, Jovan, your husband, he's about 6'6", and that guy is probably about 6'3".
Right.
Exactly. But you're looking, you could look at someone and you could figure out about how tall they are by comparing them to someone else's height you know. Whether it's yours or somebody else, you could look at that person and you could see, oh, that guy's he's 5'10", and be pretty close.
Sure.
Same with weight, same with anything.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're comparing it to something, but you're not robotically going, let me see how many square feet or cubic inches my husband's body is. You don't give a crap. That's not how you arrive at anything. You find a datum of comparable magnitude. That alone gave me the insight, and I started giving seminars. In fact, the people at Armless are MLS, they sent people twice to my class just to find out what it was, so they could try to incorporate it into what became the tax system they had. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting, and they're wonderful people, but what made it fantastic is I had an economist, PhD economist in that first class, and it was recorded. The recording's long gone. The guy that made the recording had it in his YouTube thing, and not mine. And I was always linking to it. And then when he left, he lost that account anyway. But what I'm blessed with is the economist who was there, John Wake, took amazing notes. And I still have those notes on my website, on the number one home agent website, which is my agent success site. And if you go to that site, numberonehomeagent.com, and look in the search bar for how to price a home, how to price a house, you'll come to that class I gave, but you won't see the video on that one. It's gone, but John's notes are there. And reading his notes, I couldn't have been more lucky to get someone so detailed as him. He's a real smart guy anyway, but to get his level of detail, and he wrote down everything, and I put the notes on the website, and of course, they're still there, so anyone could go there and get that. And like one of the things that I learned is that if you have wisdom, share it. And this is one of the reasons. I was
just going to ask you this.
That's one of the reasons, and I learned that from Hubbard, and that's one of the reasons I think so highly of Gary Keller. he is, in my opinion, the smartest person in the real estate business that has ever existed, and certainly the kindest when I look at from this viewpoint. If you say, can Gary be negative towards, he can do anything. But my point is, if any other company or anyone besides Gary Keller had half of the stuff he's compiled, his knowledge and wisdom, they would have kept it as trade secrets. Gary takes every single thing he learns, and he first shares it with his top agents, then he shares it with his company, then he shares it with the industry. And it's the most priceless information. I just couldn't say enough nice things about Gary, specifically for just that one attribute of sharing his wisdom. So that is, as opposed to, let me hoard this, like this insight that I have. So on how to price a house, is that information available? Yes, but it's how to do it, not, because the person still has to go look at some houses. You understand?
Right.
So I hope I'm answering your question.
No, you are. And I want to know, so follow-up question for you is, so you learned that really the key to being a good lister is how to price a home. And then you said, but you also said the certainty. Yes. And I feel like you and I have talked a lot about certainty over the years. Will you share about certainty? Like, can you talk about the mindset or the development of certainty? Because I feel like there's so many agents that I work with now that I have a few years and some success, I encounter agents of all different levels, and there is a lack of certainty I can sense a lack of certainty in them, and it's causing them not to be able to move forward. How would you advise them on developing that, or where does that come from for you?
It's a combination of several things. Thank you for the question. Yeah. It's a brilliant question, honestly. First of all, some people are just living in fear. It won't matter what you change the subject to. Their emotional response to life is fear. Low volume fear is worry. So if someone's constantly worried, they have a certain level of uncertainty. But how you arrive at certainty on any subject, and I learned this from Hubbard, you would take, the first thing you would do is, let's look at real estate school. And this would be true all across the country. One of the things that I personally know with complete certainty is that all data are not uniformly important. Some are very irrelevant, some are vital, and some are, well, it'd be good to know it, but you wouldn't have to know it. When you go to real estate school, there is this monotone evaluation of importances on all of the data.
Right.
It's all vital.
Right.
And I'm thinking, it's not all vital. Some of it's very unimportant, and after you pass the test, you won't ever use it again as long as you live.
Yes.
You will need to know an acre is 43,560 square feet and a few other little things. The rest of it is just gibberish. Now, why am I saying that? Well, let's take that person's data evaluation. So they hear all these instructors going around saying how to make $1 zillion. Well, first of all, what do those instructors have in common? Well, that they never were that successful themselves. And if they were, it was a long time ago, and they have very little, like Craig Proctor was one of the few exceptions, and he's back to pretending like he wants to help the industry, when in fact he just simply wants more money. And so, but there would have been a time, if you said, was Craig brilliant when he was a young agent? That's an understatement. Oddly, what made Craig, what's his smartness, but what made Craig fantastically successful is something he never bothered to teach. That's a fact. That's just a fact. And so you get this, but the one thing he did teach that he did is he delegated everything. He learned to delegate early on. What he did back when long distance was so pricey, it was unbelievable. He lived in a small town in Canada, and he went to, this will sound crazy now because long distance is practically free, but there was a time when a long distance call came in people got interrupted. It's long distance. You stop what you're doing. This is a long distance call. I'm serious.
I vaguely remember this growing up.
So what Craig did, and they had lines that were called wide area telephone service, and they were called Watts lines. That was the name of them. A Watts line gave you the right to make unlimited calls both directions. Craig went to the phone company and leased, and he was a young agent. This was a really ballsy thing for him to do because he wasn't exactly wealthy at the time. He leased enough Watts lines, cost him $10,000 a month, which was a lot of money back then, and he didn't have 10,000. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this was a ballsy guy and smart. And he leased those Watts lines and made free phone calls available to everyone in his town. And of course, the local news service would come and video and constantly promote, tell all your relatives in Denmark, and if you have people that are relatives of yours that live in the United Kingdom or in Poland or Czechoslovakia, they can call you free by calling one of Craig's numbers. You had to call this and listen to a commercial for Craig.
Oh, how smart.
Oh, it was brilliant.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no, it was brilliant.
What a great idea.
And then if the person wanted, like you wanted to call your grandmother in Syria, you could do the same thing, only you got to listen to a message for Craig. And he took his little town, and he farmed the whole town. 1 month he'd mail to this half, and the next month he'd mail to that half. So everybody in that town knew who he was. So did Craig make a ton? But was he doing something to see? No. Did he ever teach that or mention it in any of his classes? No. He taught what he taught, which wasn't wrong, was how to delegate. See, let's say an agent who has the capability of getting business, but this wouldn't be true just for Craig, make it for every single person that's listening or watching, I don't care. If you have the capability of getting business, there's something you do. Let's not work on it yet, or what is the something? But if you have the ability to go get business, if you've been in the business a couple of years, you have that ability. Now, even if you don't know what it is and can't describe it, and most of them can't, there's something you know how to do. We'll come back to that. You understand? Yeah. There's something you know how to do that if you did it all the time, you could get a lot more business. And you spend the bulk of your time doing $20 an hour work instead. That is what Craig taught his agents.
Got it.
That's what Craig taught his agents. And that was correct and very important.
Very important.
So, next question. Did I answer your last ones?
Well, you didn't talk that much about certainty. You did talk about Craig.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for that. No, this is exactly what I need, is remind me what I was supposed to cover. No, I'm serious. I'm not making a joke. So certainty, if you look at data, the sea of data, well, I did start to talk about it. You look at the sea of data available, and you look and go, well, what are you supposed to believe? And you have all these people saying, I can show you how to make $1 million, blah, 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 blah. Who do you believe? Well, the first thing I learned about data evaluation from Hubbard that mattered, and that I thought, oh my God, this is vital, is you would take data, any incoming data, and classify it as, yes, I can clearly see that's true.
Okay.
Or no, I can clearly see that's not true. And there's a third category of, I have no idea if that's true or not true. And the bulk of the crap that's incoming probably belongs in that bin.
Right.
And that right there. See, if you have conflicting data on something, like you can't teach anybody anything if they have a false datum and you're trying to override that false datum. It can't be done. You'd have to find the false datum, and people have tons of false ideas. One of the principles, this is also from Hubbard, that's so incredible, it's beyond belief, and it's so simple. So let's pretend you were a switchboard operator, and you had 10 lines light up at once. You can't answer 10 calls at once. It's not possible. And this is from a chapter in a book called Problems of Work, and the name of it is Confusion and the Stable Datum. This is how I arrived at certainty. So the switchboard operator must choose one of the lines to answer first, and then answer that and go amalgamated shipping or whatever the hell the name of the company is. Please hold. Amalgamated shipping, please hold. Amalgamated ship. Get the idea. And then go back and handle them one at a time. But one got selected as that's first, arbitrarily. So a stable datum is a datum a person uses to help them make decisions. Now, let's take it further. Every subject in existence has a stable datum as its foundation, whether it's chemistry, arithmetic, advanced math, calculus. There's some datum that is believed to be true. It is that the foundation of that entire subject. And that the subject is built on top of that. You could look to Isaac Newton for some fantastic stable data that are still used to this day even with all the advances in science. You go, well, nothing got changed on what Mr. Newton found. Now, here's what's interesting. A person has a stable datum on every subject. They have to in order to think at all. Now, here's what's fantastic. A little child would have a stable datum, like your little daughter, honey. Her stable datum was, Mama's always right. Mama's always right. That would be a pretty typical datum for a little kid, their mom. It's not a bad idea. It doesn't happen to be true, but it's good to have a little kid have that.
Right.
I want to get that last. It doesn't happen to be true. So you see sometimes, a person finds out a Catholic priest molested a little boy.
Sure.
And they've been a Catholic all their life. And then they decide after discovering this, not only is that priest no good, the whole Catholic Church is no good. The Pope is a bastard, and he covered it up, and the cardinals were in on the deal. I hate them, and they spend the rest of their life attacking Catholicism. How does that work? They had a stable datum. The priest is always right.
Right.
And they felt betrayed when they found out it wasn't true. Well, obviously, so the first thing to learn about a stable datum is it doesn't have to be true to be used as a stable datum. Whenever a person is confused about anything, they will grab a stable, they'll pick something that makes it make sense and hold on to it for dear life. If you wanted examples of this, look at politics. Oh God, no, that's a fact. Mm-hmm. And then everything else had to be, no, if this one's true, they're lying. This is the good one.
Right.
So a stable datum doesn't have to be true to be used as a stable datum. So the first thing, when you have some area of your life, if I used to give talks all the time where I would say, okay, if you consider yourself to be a philosopher, please raise your hand. No matter how many people, please raise your hand if you think you're a philosopher. And one or two people in a big crowd would raise their hand, sort of almost like it's a joke. And I said, no, seriously, do you think you're a philosopher? And I say, well, point out to them what every one of you is. You have certain ideas on how you think the world should work. You have certain ideas about what you think is true and what should be true and how people ought to behave. That giant collection of your ideas is your philosophy. Whether it's true or not, this is what you believe. I'm not challenging their philosophy. And for it to be your philosophy, it doesn't have to be something you're out preaching or trying to get others to agree to, just your philosophy. Well, if every area of your life is going just perfectly, I would say you have a wonderful philosophy. If I looked at your ideas and Jovan's ideas about children and family and marriage, I would sweepingly say your ideas about family and marriage are fabulous based on your success. I get that. I'm not saying you ought to start a column writing, but I'm just pointing out, you see something that's working perfectly, the thinking behind it is obviously valid. That's all. Right. The only point I'm making there. Now, I want to go further.
Okay.
This is on the question is on certainty.
Yes.
So if you have an area of your life that isn't going well, let's pretend it has something to do with your thinking. Just kind of as a science fair project.
Okay.
Yeah, you understand?
I do.
You take any area, so your ideas on how to get business, I don't know how to do it. So you have, instead of pretending you know something you obviously don't know that you don't know it. Because you cannot learn something you think you already know.
Right.
So let's go back to somebody who's struggling and they have false information. I don't know what it is. I'm not even trying to take that up right now. But what I know already is they have false ideas about how to do something. And they just need to get it sorted out. It doesn't mean some horrible thing happened or they've been abused. It doesn't mean anything other than they have some false data. I don't know where they got it. I'm not even trying to find out where they got it. I'm only pointing out if whatever they're using to think with doesn't quite get the result they're hoping for, it must be wrong. And that's how you would learn. So go back to the 3 categories of information that you would hear. A datum comes in. That's true. I can see that. That's workable. Like if I said my ideas and her ideas and your ideas about gravity seem to be working out just fine as for us on how when we walk in and out and our drive, whatever we believe about gravity, it's working all the time. Well, those are valid ideas. This doesn't mean that you are an expert and could explain the gravitational.
Sure.
No. It just means that the concepts you have are correct. So if you have ideas on here's a friendly dog, here's a dog I might want to be leery of, whatever those ideas are, if it's valid and you see, oh no, I'm consistently enforced, like my concepts are correct, well, they are correct. So you take any data you can think with, wouldn't matter what the subject was, and if you go, well, I can clearly see that's a valid piece of information. Now, when you go to successful people and you ask them, how did you get successful? Most of them don't actually know. And so they spew gibberish or just blatantly lie and start telling people what they think they ought to say instead of what the truth was. And I'm not even calling them intentional liars. They're more idiots than they are liars. I remember this one guy, whenever he was in a be gone, he would do what's called a hat write-up. And he would write all the stuff. And I said, but Jim, you don't do that. No, but the person replacing me, that's what they should be doing. Well, what do you do? What do you do, actually? Not what do you think you ought to be telling people you do. What do you actually do? But that, no, this is better for them. I'm not making this up. So I go, Jim just specialized in that kind of nonsense to me. And I go, it's the opposite of what would be valid. So you have these 3 categories of data, and you should be able to take anything you know and put it in one of the 3. Clearly false, clearly true, or I don't know. And if the I don't know bin isn't larger than the other 2, you're probably wrong about a whole bunch of stuff. Because there's tons of stuff. If you looked carefully, like, is the news correct? Well, it depends. It's not all lies, but I certainly wouldn't want to say if they printed it, it's got to be true. That's not a fact.
Right.
All kinds of crap gets printed. All kinds of crap goes out on the internet. That doesn't make it true. So what I'm looking to go back to certainty. So when you talk about knowing something, stick to stuff you actually know. And if you don't know it, if you can develop certainty that you don't know it, believe it or not, that increases your certainty hugely. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, but I feel like you need to say more about that.
There's a drill that's done in a classroom situation on some Scientology courses, which is sort of amazing. It sounds so simple, like why would you do this drill? You'd have to experience it to get the full essence. It's basically called observation of the obvious. That's it, observation of the obvious. And you're done with a coach and the person they're coaching. So the coach might say, look at that guy over there. Okay, tell me what you see. Well, he's a man. Okay, he has 2 ears. Can you see both of them? Well, no, I just see this one. No, tell me again. I'll ask the question again. Tell me what you see. And ask it again. Oh, yeah, I can see his left ear. Thank you. What else do you see? He has a nose, and I can see part of his mouth. He has a mouth. Can you see his whole mouth? No. All right. Well, what do you see? I can see part of a mouth. All right. Thank you. And you have them literally. This is you like because people dub in
right
stuff they don't see to make it make sense, and they do it all the time. They do it all the time, and then they say, "Well, I saw this." No, you didn't. You saw something sort of like it, and you dubbed the rest in. All magicians, stage magicians, rely on that to be able to do their show. I'm not accusing them of something deceptive.
Are you saying it's not real magic? Wait a second. Go back.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Hold on.
Hold on.
The room is spinning.
They didn't really saw the woman in 2. Wait a minute. But you get the idea.
I do get the idea.
The person sees it. What they see. I remember this. You won't know the name. There used to be a magician here in town at 7th Avenue and McDowell. His name was Bert Easley. This is way before. This is like I was a kid. And he had a shop called Bert Easley's Fun Shop, and he mostly catered to magicians. So at a young age, I used to hang around there all the time, like a groupie, just hanging around, meeting other amateur magicians and the ones who did real magic shows, and I'm in awe. And I was constantly, and I used to see Bert do stuff on a stage show. And at first I thought, there's one trick he did. I don't know how he did it. I've never learned it. I've never learned how he did it, which was he acted like he was drunk and would do this routine of like tipping over. And like he would tip over almost where he's touching the floor and then slowly wave his arms and stuff and get back up like he was.
Oh, like Michael Jackson in Smooth Criminal.
But yeah. I don't know what he did on the stage to do it. He wasn't that strong with amazing core strength. He was an old man. But he would do rap. He was one of the few magicians to actually pull a rabbit out of a hat is what made him amazing. That was sort of that. It was very old school. You had to have a black background. You had to wear a black tuxedo. And you had to have a top hat that could be collapsed. And you had to have a rabbit. And if you're going to pull a rabbit out of a hat, logically you could say then you must put a rabbit in a hat. He would show this hat, slam it and make it collapse and pull it open and show it, have the spotlight shine in it. By the way, black absorbs all light. Like white reflects all light, black absorbs all light.
Okay.
So this is critical because he has a spotlight on him. And he shows this empty hat and waves around his magic wand. And the next thing you know, the hat's on the table, upside down. And he reaches in and pulls a rabbit out of it, which is miraculous. So how did he get the rabbit into the hat? So he has under his tuxedo on the right side a black cloth bag that is the same identical color as his coat and his pants. And inside of that bag is a rabbit. Rabbits can be smaller, squished down, than they are when they're full size,
Sure.
holding them up by their ears. And he's waving around, and when he touches his his stomach area with the hat, there's nothing about it unless you know here's where he picks up what's called the load. He's picking up the load right now, but he's so professional, you never see it. Right. And then by the time he does all this dancing around the hat and blah, blah. The load's already in the hat. And people will swear, I saw him crush that hat, and then he reached in and pulled a rabbit out. What you saw is he crushed the hat, picked up a load, then put the hat on the table, then pulled the rabbit out. And so when you're not trained in a subject, it's very easy for someone to push something past you.
Right.
So when you see something that doesn't make sense, the first thing, if you see, like people see some magician do something and they go, it's sort of amazing. Some of them really look amazing. I'm not questioning that, but there isn't something supernatural going on. Like getting someone's card correctly is not because they must be reading my mind. It's so easy to force a card on someone. It was something I could teach someone in just a minute or two. Fan a deck of cards, just pick one you want to know, and just shove it in their hand. When they reach out, before they know it, they've taken the one you've just forced into their fingers, and you walk away. And the next thing you know that card, and you can go through all kinds of rigmarole and then later find the real number. But my point is, when something doesn't make sense, stop pretending you know what it is and just put it in that bin of, I don't know that. Did I get your question answered?
You did. And I think I want to say it back because anytime that we talk, you're always talking on a level that is like very elevated.
Okay.
And I think that sometimes it can be difficult to like distill down like, okay, so how does this practically like apply? So I'm going to try to distill it down for like when I'm thinking about agents that I work with and whatever. Okay. So how to develop certainty? Well, to be okay with not knowing.
Yes.
Is part of how you develop certainty.
That is huge.
Okay. Because in what you just described, when you're not sure of something, your instinct or a lot of people's natural inclination is to try to make it make sense. Like they're going to start filling in the blanks with whatever the fuck they think it is. And by doing so, there's likely incorrect data in there that they're filling in.
Yes.
That then's going to cause even more chaos and wrong conclusions and then the bad negative result, which then perpetuates the uncertainty is like kind of where I'm going with it,
that's
right?
exactly
Am I hearing
correct.
that right?
Yes, you're hearing it exactly right.
Okay. So my next question for you then is, how is it that you see an agent coming in, maybe they're new, maybe they're not, whatever. Maybe they're like you, where you said like 12 years, you were kind of just twisting around, didn't quite know. But then you got certain on something.
Yes.
You got certain on, okay, two things I heard you say. You got certain on the people who seem to have it going on here are listers.
Yep.
And it seems like these listers are not necessarily likable people.
Right.
You know, it's not like they have some charisma or whatever.
Some do, but not usually. Like there were some agents that were very charismatic that I could point to, but some of them you'd go, what's the secret? Competence on, and then how to price. Yes. So they had an ability, and whether they knew why or not, they had some ability to price homes. Yes, it's not even, I don't even want to characterize that ability. It's hard to learn, but if you look at any profession, make it a doctor, make it a dentist. Like you could have, you could go to any other profession, architect. There's such a thing as professionalism. And people get this idea, like some agents not some agents, most of the industry. They don't really understand there's something to actually learn. The stuff you have to learn isn't what they teach in real estate school.
Right.
I don't mean it's false data. It's just not relevant data. It has almost nothing to do with getting business. How do you go get business? See, the secret of success in business is getting and keeping customers. Just that, getting and keeping customers.
I love this. This is
there
simple.
Isn't some other, what else? No, that's it. Getting and keeping customers. So if you take an agent who's fumbling along, they don't know how to get customers. Oddly, some of them know how to keep a customer. Like, why would I say this? Like, that doesn't mean, like, I don't want to, like, most of the false things that agents say is not based on misrepresentation intentional.
Sure.
What happens is they will invent data, like instead of, like, I don't know, they feel compelled to know, and they'll fill in, like, make up rules that FHA has or make up rules that the Veterans Department is now doing.
Sure.
It never happened.
Right. We see it all the time, too. It's so weird.
And they spew it out with a conviction that's sort of astounding. And you could go, well, that's not true. But they're not lying, because lying implies that the person making the statement knew it was false.
Correct.
And they're saying it for some personal gain or something.
Sure.
These people aren't gaining something from it. They just don't know, and they don't know they don't know. Like, let's take learning to list. Most agents never learn to list. Like, here would be two things to say on any subject, but it would certainly apply to learning to be a lister. You can't learn any subject if you think you already know the subject. That's number one, vital rule.
Okay.
I learned that from Hubbard. Second rule, you'd have to think that there's something worth learning. So it would be, I don't know it, and it's worth learning. Both of those must be true. Whether the subject is photography,
sure,
or how to list. Most agents mistakenly believe they understand getting listings because they know how to fill out the forms.
Yes.
And that's all they know.
Right.
That's all they know. The other stuff is mysterious to them. And the listings those agents get are the ones they accidentally get because they already sold the guy a house and he already likes them and trusts them. Like they found a customer, not because they sold themselves. They called off a sign or they got an internet lead. Doesn't matter. Sure. And they were nice, honest people. And they showed up, and the buyer, well, I want to see that house. They should come out and show them houses. And the buyer could see this person's not a liar. They're not trying to trick me. They're not trying to, con me. So they wound up liking the person, and they bought a house. And then the guy goes, I'm going to have to sell my house. Well, I can sell your house for you, Bob. And he's already got the listing.
Right.
And so goes over and takes the listing, and he feels he knows how to take listings because he went over and took some. He doesn't know how to get listings. He knows how to take them if he already have them handed to him. So if the average agent who's sort of successful or in the business sells 12 houses a year, seldom will more than 4 of those houses be listings. The rest of them are buyer deals.
Right.
That's not someone who knows how to get listings. But they don't know that they don't know. So they don't believe there's something to learn. When it's so obvious, they don't have a clue. Because if they knew how to get listings, really, why in the name of God would they be driving people around to go, what do you think of this one? You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you have something to learn, and it's not even hard to learn, but it most certainly isn't how to fill out the forms. Oddly, you wouldn't have to know how to fill out the forms.
No.
You could have someone you could hand the form to and say, please fill this out for me. I've priced it at $5.95. and fix all the other stuff and make it right. And you could get some high detail person to go, I'm happy to, thank you. I'm not making fun of anybody here, you understand?
No, totally.
But the person needs to understand what they don't know. So to learn something, see, you got into real estate and figured out, because you're smart, you're really, really smart. You figured out stuff that you didn't know and needed to learn and learned it. That's all. You figured out what was it you needed to learn and learned it. And you're fantastically successful as a result of that. And when I say to you, you don't know X, you immediately go, yeah, that's right, I don't. You don't have some defensive, no, and I know it. But you'd be amazed.
Right.
You'd be amazed to go talk to people and go, I don't think you know. Blah. Yes, don't tell me what I know. I know it. Am I going to work with that person at all? No, I'm not. I'm not going to spend my time trying to convince them. I swear to God, I know something you don't know that'll help you immensely. If they can't see that part,
right,
I don't want to work on it. It's too stupid. But I mean, the thing is, a person either knows something or they don't know it. And if you can recognize, like there was a time, I knew how to price a home so perfectly. This is amazing. This will tell you. I knew if a house, these are numbers that'll seem strange today. I knew if a house was not $199.9, it was $205, not $210, it was $205. And I could look at a house and with confidence go, your house is worth $205. I think it's worth $210. No, it's $205. And how did I know that? Because I saw a lot of houses. Now, I had this viewpoint that I knew what a house was worth. And that worked brilliantly right up until prices started accelerating rapidly. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this house is worth $200. Well, we sold one just like it for $255. That's not possible. That's unbelievable. So I didn't believe it. I made a decision. It's unbelievable. So I didn't believe it. And this went on. And finally, I thought the house that I thought was worth $205 with my brilliance, now I'm stupid and it actually is worth $300. I'm not making this up. This actually occurred. And it was difficult for me to recognize I didn't have the slightest idea of what a house was worth. And when it went the other direction, I could help agents because I had learned, hey, I don't know. People would say, can I sell my house? Of course I can sell your house. What should it sell for? I don't know. Well, you're the expert. Yes, and that's why I'm telling you. I don't know. It looks to be here, but it might be there. I can't tell you. What I'll know is when we put it on the market, we're going to find out what it's worth.
Right.
Well, can't you give me a closer, you have a $50,000 gap. I know. That I can tell you. But I can't narrow it down unless you just want me to invent a number. I don't know. And when prices were falling, it was funny because I helped an agent out of Tucson who was part of a Craig Proctor group. And this was a funny story. He got, because he couldn't sell anything. And I told him if a house, the correct price of a house is the price. He said, we have appraisals on these. So he tells the people in the Craig Proctor group how I helped him. So I start getting calls from heavy hitters all over the country. And all the calls went like this. Hi, I'm Bobby Swanson from San Diego. I have 76 listings. They're all properly priced, and none of them are selling. And I'd say that to me again. I want to make sure I understand before I take this up. And he would go, sure, Russell. I have 76 listings. I have appraisals on every one of them. They're all properly priced, and we're not getting any of them sold. And I know you helped. I can't remember the guy's name now. And fixed his business. I said, I'm going to do the same thing for you. The first thing I'll tell you is none of your listings are properly priced. And every one of them, same concept, would go, how would you know that? I said, because we're on the phone. That's how I know. You called me. Not one of your listings is properly priced. And I had to tell that to about 10 different guys.
Right.
And here's what was funny. And they said, every one of them went, well, how would you know? Because you called me. That's how I know. None of them are properly priced. A properly priced listing is a listing that will sell for that price right now. And any statement to the contrary is false data. And if you have a declining market, which we had, what is the correct price? The one where someone will go, I'll buy it. And anything less than that, it's not the correct price. So how did I know what? But I'm just telling you, I had to learn and accept fully to tell my clients, I don't know what your house is worth. I don't want to guess. I want to tell you the truth. I don't know. And anyone who pretends they know is inventing data. So sometimes you have to be willing to not know. And people who have this, well, I know everything. Well, actually, you don't. And if you can start by finding things you don't know, you'll be amazed at how helpful it is to recognize you don't know that. Like there's all kinds of things people think, well, I could control. No, you can't. It's like when I hear someone say, because of my spiritual advancement, I can do a lot of things and control the weather. And I've heard shit like this from people, and I'm thinking, I'm so happy for you. Well, did you ever do that? No, I know better. The weather's not waiting for my thoughts. My thoughts do not influence the weather. I can use my thoughts to influence people. That I can do, but any more than do my thoughts change that table? No. My thoughts can change what I think about that table, but I don't change the nature of the table. I don't at all. I can change my thoughts. You can change your thoughts. And going back to success, if you have a successful viewpoint about what you're doing, you're going to be successful. Let's define success. This is fantastic. It mostly doesn't get defined. You have people who should know better talking about how much money they make and saying how successful they are. Look at me. Well, what if you only had a Buick? Could you still be successful? See, this is a real key question I love to ask. If you only had a Buick, could you still say you're successful? How many deals did Mother Teresa do her last year? I don't know the number, but you get the idea. So success is defined correctly as intending something and having it occur, period.
Oh, I love it.
Huh?
I love it.
Intending not to do something and not doing it, either one of those is completely successful. Where people screw up royally, you get thoughts like, I would never want to be like him. I would never want to be like her. Really? Well, deciding that makes you exactly like her or him. Why is that? Well, if I said, please don't think of an elephant.
You're going to think of an elephant.
Right. So you have 3 conditions for all goals: be, do, and have. Beingness, doingness, and havingness. Those are the only types of goals because they're the 3 conditions of existence itself. So the present would be do, have. The past would be been, done, had. And the future would be, will do, will have. So that's 9 categories for goals. And then there's the negative version of don't be, don't do, don't have, which complicates it. And the only one that can ever work is the will be, will do, will have. See, if somebody's goal is, I wished grandfather hadn't died. Okay, but that's not a workable goal.
As he is dead.
Yeah. So the goals, if the goal has anything to do with the past, anything, it's not a correctly thought out goal. All goals would be from present time about the future, and it would be, will do, will have. And any attempt to do something other than that will always result in failure. So let's go back to the agent. So they'd have to decide something like, I easily get tons of business by doing blah, blah. I don't care if it's go to Kiwanis meetings. I'm not making a joke here.
No, I know.
Like some people, you could go, how do you get business? I know a guy quite well whose entire business model is charming people. And I'm not making this up. And he's very successful, and he has been for years. And one time, this is some years ago, he said, Tim, we're at lunch, and he goes, I wanted to talk to you, Russ, about getting some ideas about how to sell my business and put it in the shape I could sell it. And I said, you don't have a business you can sell. And he said, yes, I do. And I said, no, your business is 100%, I'm not making fun of him, dependent upon your charm. He goes, huh? And I said, that's not something you can sell. This thought had never crossed his mind. And I said, this doesn't make it a bad business, but it's not something you could sell because somebody can't buy it and go, Tim, I want to be just as charming. If you met the guy, you'd go, God, what a nice man. I'm serious. He's instantly likable. He's instantly someone you would trust, and people like him immediately. Is there something wrong with that? No. Is it a good thing to have a human like that? Yes. Is that a business model? No. So you get that difference. Yeah. So you could take anything. If you're going to sell a business, you'd actually have to have something that didn't require you there at all. And that's a business that could be sold. So if you said, well, what if the ownership, I don't know, of Home Depot or Lowe's or frankly, the Shell station on the corner of you could use, that's a business. The owner does not have to be there going, no, I don't like the way that gas is coming out of that nozzle. You get the idea. So you could have a business that wasn't dependent on that one fabulous person. Any business that's dependent on the fabulousness of someone or someone who's the only really truly smart one. That's not a business. He can have a hobby, he can like it, he can make a lot of money maybe, but that's not a business. You'd have to have a business that the owner or creator of the business could be extracted from. But when you talk about a goal, so you go, will be, will do, will have, only the positive version, and then you get the decision. So you go, let's go name, want, get. Correct technology simply smooths out the get part of what it is you've named and want. It makes it easier. Could you not have correct technology and have a want so specific and so intense you could get it anyway? Yep. Mm-hmm. So you get this where most people, let's go back to the failure agent versus the successful agent. Every successful agent, if I ask them, what is it you want? Guess what? They can answer the question. They know what they want because they've named it. And to name the goal must be specific. I want to be successful. What does that mean?
Right.
I want to be rich. What does that mean? It's a meaningless statement. I want a Diet Coke. Okay. That's specific. I want a red Corvette. Awesome. That's specific. Here's a white one. No, I want a red Corvette. Well, you should change your mind. No, I want a red one. The only point I'm getting at is if you can name it exactly, only then can you want it. And when you strip off all the counter intention on the want, you can get it pretty easily.
So do you feel like most agent, we have to, unfortunately, they're telling us we have to wrap up, but we
don't. They can go to hell.
I feel like I have to have you back because I want to continue this, but I do have a question. Do you feel like, or maybe a way to wrap it up. So do you feel like most successful agents have found a way, whether it's on purpose or maybe by accident, to
Usually.
have just pretty strong intention and a pretty clear want?
Well,
Like, is that what it is?
Yeah, but if I said, isn't that true with you?
Yeah.
Let's start with that. Then yes, it's possible. Would you have to know any of the things I just said to arrive at that? No.
No.
You wanted it, like you wanted to be successful so much. And that, to you, it was like a certain amount of sales. It was a certain amount of money. But at each point, when you started making 100,000, you're like, God, I'm getting good. When you started making 200,000, you're like, I'm getting amazing. And you kept going on from there because your demand for income, your demand to be successful. And you had the idea that negative thoughts that seem to be against that goal, ignore them.
Right.
You did that, and the way I know you did that is you've been successful. So you had to have done that. Pretend it was a sports game, and pretend that the guy who's caught the ball, and he's a professional athlete, some of the best in the world, and he's running down the field. There's a bunch of guys stronger than him,
Sure,
faster, that just want to knock him down. So when he makes the touchdown, his intention had to be senior to theirs. And he didn't pick up any of their count. He had a bunch of real counter intention, exterior to himself. The average agent's counter intention is interior. I have a special thing on my site, number1homeagent.com. If they will go to the search bar and put enemy, that's ENEMY, enemy line, and hit return. That's 2 words, enemy line. There's 2 blog posts there.
Okay, we'll write this out too.
That is a technique for stripping off one's own counter intention. And it works like magic.
I love you.
Love you back, honey.
Thank you so much. This is like, this is so much great information and so helpful. And thank you for all the years of mentoring me.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, sweetie.
All right, guys, we're done. Good luck, man. We got to have you back.
Yeah.
We need to do this again. All right, thanks.
These my dollars make it hurt.